Hello friends, and welcome to the 8th episode of our Chips Challenge playthrough. This week in Rizorty land, we had our first snow of the year, tiny flakes that dissipated before they hit the ground. This seems a little bit laughable compared to the heavy storms we used to get back in the Midwestern United States. Nonetheless, it's now feeling vaguely wintry here, and perhaps it's the same where you are. I hope you're staying warm and happy in these sometimes cold, sometimes dreary days. Okay, spoilers ahead from last week. For the first half of last episode, I thought things were going pretty darn well. Bebo and Here partnered up and the team successfully hunted a panther. But then, kind of out of nowhere, Chip attacked somebody, twice. This was completely out of character, or at least inconsistent with how I'd been thinking of his character to that point. Behind the scenes, in terms of Rimworld game mechanics, what happened each time is a failed conversion attempt. Both Paul and Here tried to tell Chip about their ideologion. The Rimworld wiki says, quote, "Social fights have a small chance of starting when a pawn is insulted or slighted," end quote. Failed conversions count as an insult, so we got very unlucky to have two fights happen so fast. I bring this up for two reasons. First, I know how many of you were surprised to see Chip brawling. Me too. Second though, I want to mention how strange writing narratives for a game like this can be. In most fiction writing, the author fully controls their characters. If the author doesn't want a random fistfight, it just doesn't happen. In this series though, I control the characters, sort of. The game gives me some events, and I try to tie them together into something worth watching. I wind up omitting a lot of scenes that are either too repetitive or that don't really add to the story. They're part of the gameplay, but not really worth trying to connect to the broader narrative. But then there's some weird cases, like the earnest, adventurous Chip suddenly turning into a short-tempered pugilist. How do you think I should handle cases like these? If a character does something significantly out of line with their understood personality, should I treat it as a one-time bit of weirdness, maybe something brought on by indigestion? Or is it better to instead work it into the main narrative? For the rest of the playthrough, do we have to worry that Chip's gonna snap and kill somebody? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Also, like last time, I will end the episode with a further question for you. Okay, that's enough blather for this week. As always, thanks for watching my videos. It's especially fun and meaningful to make them when I know so many of you really enjoy them. I hope this one meets your expectations. Bebo, awake early, attends to his friend's wounds. They'd made a mess of themselves by brawling. When would they learn the only thing they get from fighting is bruises? He at least gains something more from their fighting. He continues to develop his knowledge of the human body and its maladies. Unknown to Bebo, he and his friends weren't the only people affected by the recent celebration. Not too far away, a wandering artist named Chris caught sight of their flames. Chris is looking for a colony to join, and he believes that he's found one. I asked you all at the end of last video what we should do with this possible new recruit. You all were split, offering good reasons on each side. Ultimately, I was convinced that it was just too much risk to take on this new refugee. Given our food and living space situations, especially if Paul and Here decide to stay, I'm just not sure it'll work out. So, as Chris continues along, getting closer to the settlement, he glances up at the sky. It seems to be a little bit after midday. Looking down to the trees again, though, he blinks. The fire is now out. He scans the foliage. Nothing. No sign at all of what he'd seen before. He wanders aimlessly, calling out loudly. The only attention he draws, though, is that of a passing bear. Unfortunate. Our colonists don't like that choice, so they'll have a minor mood malus for the next 6 days. Luckily, everyone also has an improvement to mood from the exceptional celebration. Somehow, it all balances out. Returning to Bebo and the patients, they're still bruised from the earlier flying fist fireworks, and they'll likely spend much of today recovering. Ever the attentive doctor, Bebo notes how Here is handling her infection. She looks pale and is sweating. No doubt she's still not out of the woods. He helped her to eat breakfast, and her eyes locked to his. "I don't want to die, Bebo." He ignores her words, instead offering encouragement. "Eat. For now, all you can do is eat and rest. Eat." That same afternoon, in adjacent rooms, two conversations occur. Paul and Here, who arrive together, speak elliptically. Though they discuss fine food and elite fashion, which are the luxuries they've been without here, they're actually acknowledging they'll soon need to decide whether to stay. That question, though, won't be resolved until Here is fully recovered. In the other room, Chip again talks up the community, encouraging Jefferson to join. We don't have much yet, but with your help, that could change. We want you here. Seeing an opening, Jefferson comes clean about not wanting to be clean.
Look, do you want to see me dead?
Chip blinks.
People like me are called wasters. We're addicts.
Another blink.
If we can't find Psychite, that's the end. Psychite, soon, or I die.
She nods, her point made, and then shudders. Chip promises to do what he can. Only one problem. He doesn't know what Psychite is. In the next few days, he'll find out. But for now, there are larger goals to accomplish. Yesterday, Chip focused on the future by planning out a couple more buildings. Now, with the combined efforts of Paul and Chip, one of them is going up. It's only a wood cabin, but to these settlers, it may as well be a palace. Chip begins his inquiry into Psychite by asking the obvious person. He returns to Jefferson. She gives a few synonyms for Psychite from her subculture.
It's the green good, the freedom flakes, the special spice feel nice. How about take this, it's pure bliss. Maybe up the nose, no more woes?
As she continues, Chip realizes how many of these slangish names rhyme. Maybe he should tell Paul. Lost in thought, his face droops and his eyes glaze. Jefferson shifts tacks.
It's a plant.
You can grow it. That, though, was only half true. Chip couldn't grow it. Not yet. Back in his fields, among the crops, Chip realizes that plants sustain people in many ways. Food for him, sustenance for Jefferson, somehow. His eyes narrowing, he notices empty spots where he'd previously planted. Plants are food for Grobby, too. Stay out of here, girl. Hard rice and stringy cotton is just gonna make you sick. Go play by the river instead. No one tells Grobby what to do, of course, but for now, she decides to play along. Overnight, Chip and Here again rest together. Here is still confused about Chip's violence. She watches him sleep. How could he snap, brutally beating her, and then go right back to being his sweet old self? Something didn't quite add up. While wondering about that, she idly glances down to her wounded torso, the place where his teeth had found her skin. The swelling's gone, and the red streaks are too. She's cleared this infection. And then Bebo's at her side, offering another meal, commenting, "Ah, my sweet, you have returned to health. You have returned to me, and how gladdened I am at this development." At once she replies, "Bebo, thank you for looking after me. I love you and I respect your beliefs, but if you ever make me sleep on the floor again, I'll kill you." They both laugh, though neither is quite sure why. Unsure how to give Jefferson what she most wants, Chip decides to help in another way. Her cell has been mostly empty since she's arrived, and she's been squatting in the corner to eat her meals. No doubt she'd be happier with a table and chair, even if it's not quite Psychite. And speaking of happiness, good news. A crop of ambrosia buds has been spotted down south. The recently burned soil is hospitable to this tasty treasure. Wait a second. Wasn't there a previous ambrosia event way back in the first or second episode? Right along the river, we'd surprised Chip in 6 days, something. Okay, this soil right here was once ripe with flavors for Chip to enjoy, but then it was all eaten by this rat. What a glutton! What an outrage! No forgetfulness by old Rizorty. Nope. Poor Chip. Feeling justifiably disappointed in the world, Chip decides it's time to right at least one wrong. He wanders inside, intending to apologize. "Here, I don't know why, I just want to say..." As he stammers along, she interjects. "Hush, you. Tell me. A while back, you were out in the forest while the base was about to burn down, and you were screaming. Why?" Realizing he has yet another reason to be embarrassed, Chip looks down and gestures for her to follow. They walk through the forest together, Here doing most of the talking. "When I was out walking as a little one, I turned a corner and stumbled into a big old dog. I got surprised and started shouting. I kicked at it, though it hadn't done a thing against me. Back at the festival, I figure you got a little surprised too. Maybe surprised by your own feelings. You gotta learn to control those, Chip, or they're gonna control you." Chip listens intently, but doesn't quite know what to say. "Now, what are we gonna find out here?" There was a cobra. It surprised me.
Like you said, I didn't control my feelings then either.
Well, that's a different story. With those, you better get kicking and stomping right away. The pair sneak close to where Chip last saw the snake, and it's still there, hissing and slithering about. Here whispers, "Go on, shoot it." Chip tries. Here joins in. They both miss. The snake glides south, seemingly unperturbed by the archer's efforts. They chase, seeing the predator slow, its head drooping low to move undetected through the vegetation. Stealthily, it slides through a group of monkeys, cutting an elderly off from the rest. And then, with fast, the cobra strikes, stunning and poisoning with a single vicious bite. Victorious, the reptile spreads its jaws, ready to feast. Hurry, it's distracted. Arrows rain down around the hunter's targets, all of them missing. Grobby's family looks on approvingly. They're glad to see pest control at work. Not wanting to be a bother though, they hurry along as Chip and Here continue to aim and fire. And then it's dead and the hunters whoop, hopping together and briefly embracing. Here, thanks for your help. You killed it. She shakes her head. Nah, Chip, that was all you. It was. They gather up the two corpses and head on home. On the way, Chip smiles and stands a little bit taller. With that relationship repaired, Here turns her attention to finishing up their research into stone cutting. She writes, "There can be a tremendous temptation to build with any old stone of any old shape, but crafters must take care to produce smooth edges and straight corners." While Here continues to extol the geometric virtues, Chip confidently strides to another round of hunting, this against a rodent. If he can overcome his fears and kill a snake, no doubt he can. Nope, it eludes him entirely. At least he still remembers how to harvest berries. Then Here emerges from the central shack, shouting, "It's all figured. You boys better get to hauling in stone, 'cause it's time to build." Thinking ahead to their future research, Here realizes that Paul would want them to research metalwork to improve their weaponry. She doesn't care. She wants to sit on a comfortable chair. To avoid cramming even more into the main room, let's use the partially constructed northern building for stonecrafting. This will also be Bebo's home, though for now it'll have to do some double duty. Later, Here's hurriedly composing notes on wood grain and leather cushions. She notices that Chip is again lying on the floor and comments to him, "Oh, I thought you would have made yourself a bedroll by now. There's plenty of leather." Chip almost can't believe it. Is he still dreaming? He drags himself off the floor and into the storeroom. Yes, there's more than enough. Any sleepy thoughts dissipate at once. He's all focus and finesse as he stitches the skins together. The closer he is to its completion, the more excited he feels, and then it's done and placed in the room's corner. He lowers himself into the leather, the ground now softly welcoming his weariness. Finally comfortable, he snuggles down, closing his eyes and smiling. A moment later, Here teases, "Right on time. Tomorrow you can make yourself a proper bed." As that promised tomorrow becomes today, Chip makes another attempt at hunting. He does this whenever he has a little extra time, because he knows that an improved facility with weapons will help whenever he next needs to defend their settlement. The majority of these hunts aren't terribly interesting, so they're left out of the episodes. But this one. At this point, he's relatively familiar with the operation of his bow. In fact, he's at 2,877 skill points, then at 2,898. That's 21 experience points per shot. Fine. A short time later, the turtle is wounded but still trucking along. How wounded? It's an old fellow, probably easy prey. Nobody told Chip. Finally, though, he kills it, having shot out both of its turtley eyes. I failed to record evidence of this next fact, but trust me on it. Chip is now at almost 4,500 skill points. It's taken him more than 75 arrows to kill this one animal. This isn't the best of news for future defensive endeavors. Hail, Raiders! We who are about to die salute you. In happier news, back at the settlement, Bebo finishes his home/stone cutting room. He prepares to move over Here's bed, ensuring they'll have their long-desired privacy for just kind of looking at each other. At least no one else will be looking at their looking. That would just be creepy. From not so far away though, there's another startlingly loud crash. A bloody man writhes on the ground. For now, he's Asa. He's been shot in the leg and the wound is bleeding. Bibo has definitely treated and saved worse off folks. Let's check out his bio page. He's a delicate fellow, a little physically sensitive. If he gets hurt, it's worse than it would have been on someone else. Big brain time. Just don't get hurt. Asa also has some experience with recreational drugs. On job applications, he says it was back in college and he didn't inhale. But we know the truth. Inhaling is the whole point, and he continues to partake, especially on the weekends. Despite this, he works hard, industrious in fact, getting a bonus to global work speed. Now, stats. Strong medicinal and intellectual skills are great pickups, especially if Here leaves. And that plant skill. Into drugs? Into plants? Into planting drugs? He and Jefferson are gonna get along great. While Asa was plummeting through the sky, Bibo was in the middle of telling Here about their new home, how the two of them will be able to get away from the others at night. But then there's the crash, and Paul interrupts.
Sorry, lovebirds, but that's not happening. Jefferson and whoever made that noise are getting put somewhere we can keep an eye on them. It's for their own good, and for ours.
Here's face crinkles in disappointment, but she knows there's no point in arguing. Bibo wants to challenge the necessity of segregating their guests, but he needs to make another rescue. Bibo and Here both know they'll find a way to be closer together, someday. While Bibo works to rescue the injured Asa, there's a loud chittering from the southeast. A wild chinchilla has become wilder still, and it's screaming out as it races across the bridge, desperate to taste human meat. Chip and Here aren't quite sure where the noise is coming from. They leave the main building just as the chinchilla runs in. Catching sight of Paul, they tell him to be careful, that a wild animal is somewhere nearby. Paul shrugs, figuring he'll be okay. He's just hauling some wood after all. But then he rounds the corner and it's there, a tiny torrent of teeth rushing toward him. Paul yells random noises at the animal, scaring it. A wiser man would let it flee, but Paul's locked in, his surprised feelings morphing into anger.
You made me drop my lumber. Now you die.
And sure enough, it does. Nobody messes with Paul's haul. Before too long, Asa and Jefferson have moved into joint captivity, and Chip checks in on them. This time, Jefferson doesn't meet him by begging for psychite. In fact, she no longer looks desperate. Instead, she extends a long finger toward Asa. Man, we need him. Chip shakes his head, and she continues. Tell him what you told me. Asa looks up, tired eyes over a long, weary face. Hello, I have skills relevant to the Zustieg's concerns. I know Psychite und its applications, medicinal und recreational. I can grow, synthesize und prepare the drug. I can help her. I can help you. But first, you must help me. Chip's eyes widen. Psychite is a drug? He frowns, unsure how to proceed. Growing drugs? Here? What would Bibo say? But if Jefferson's telling the truth, without drugs her life is in danger. Before Chip can make up his mind, there's triumphant shouts from the main building. My friends, what joy! She is mine! That's right, you all. Before too long, you're going to be calling him by my name. As Chip considers entering into one partnership, Bibo and Here agree to another one. So that's this week's episode, and that's this week's question. Where should Bibo and Here wed? Is there a particular spot in our base, such as it is, that would make a nice marriage spot? If you think it's a good use of time and material, the settlers could throw together a quick little chapel. Or maybe you have another idea. I'd love to hear what you think. For now though, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again real soon.